All right. Hi. Can you please tell us your name and where are you from?
I'm Diarmid O'Siegfrieda. I'm from Ireland, and I'm going to explain to my Moldovan friend here how it is that all wars are planned, often decades, maybe even sometimes centuries in advance. And I have quite a lot of proof of this subject. I've been studying it for some years now. I will start with a very simple example, Iraq. The first war in Iraq was called Gulf War I, and everybody thinks that Hussein was a bad guy and he invaded Kuwait. This is not the full truth. The full truth is the CIA, they made Hussein into power some 30 years before this. And the CIA had been planning to invade and take control of most of the Middle East for many reasons, but oil being one of them. And what happened was Hussein did what he was told. He was a good little boy, and whenever the Americans said do something, he did it. And they said attack Iran, and he attacked Iran, and that war fizzled out. And they said to him, attack Kuwait. And he agreed to that. Ignore that. And what happened next is, they didn't tell you was 10 years before the war with Iraq, the Saudi Arabia imported 1,000 machines for building army bases and making roads and so forth, brought them to the desert, to a place called the Triangle, a kind of a neutral area between Saudi, Kuwait and Iraq, dug a big hole, covered up all the machines in plastic and tarpaulins, greased them up, covered them in sand, and left them there for 10 years. So when the war started, Iraq invaded Kuwait, the Americans landed in Saudi, went straight out there, got all of 1,000 machines out of the ground and built an American base. So they had been planning 10 years in advance that war. And in return, Hussein went there. There was a big statue made of gold, maybe 1,000 tons of gold. He took that statue of gold, cut it up into pieces, brought it to Iraq. And as far as I can find out, both America took half of it and Hussein took the other half. And then because the Americans brought all their equipment to Kuwait, it was old junky equipment which was getting out of date from the Soviet time, war was finished. So they left it all there in Kuwait, and the Kuwaitis had to pay for it. So the Kuwaitis got invaded, they got robbed of everything, and then they got to start paying back all the costs of bringing the American army and all the rest of the armies to there. So that's phase one of that phased war. The second phase was the second invasion in 2003. The United Nations knew that all the bioweapons which Hussein might have had from the history, there was reasonable proof the Americans had supplied it for the Iranian war. All these bioweapons were out of date by 1996. So the United Nations going around the place saying, oh, we searched this palace, we searched that palace, whatever, of Hussein. It was a dog and pony show. They knew darn well that Hussein had no weapons of mass destruction, and yet America went to war again with Iraq. Now, what most people don't know is Hussein had 50 lookalikes, and they were very nearly perfect lookalikes. You could not say who Hussein was. And the one we saw dug out of the sand, that was one of his lookalikes. That was all done to make it look like Hussein was humiliated. And then he was hung. Well, a top guy in Hollywood said, no. What you see is Hussein is obviously in a trench in the ground, and he's got two soldiers beside him. They're small soldiers. He's in the trench 2 feet down, so he looks the same height, but he's not. He's much taller than these guys. They lead him up to a platform which is 4/5 the real size of a hanging platform. So when they pull the door, the fake Hussein, because he's obviously a double, he lands on the ground and he goes like that and pretends to be dead. And of course they used a lousy camera to do that. One of those early generation 2 megabyte video cameras, and so it was all a farce. I mean, Hussein is probably walking around in a shopping mall in New York or something right this minute, and you wouldn't know. I mean, it's all made up. It was all planned. I mean, why would the CIA kill Hussein? He did everything he was told to do by the CIA. They put him into power, and he did everything he was told. Now, he's not the only one that did everything he was told. Hitler was. There's a very interesting book written by a guy called Greg Hallett, and he says Hitler was a British spy. You have to dial that in, type it up, and up comes the book by Greg Hallett. Hitler was a British spy, and that was why Germany lost the war, because Hitler's job was not to bring Germany to win a war. It was only to go to war with Russia, so Russia and Germany would be both destroyed. It didn't matter who won, because all that they wanted was America and Britain would come out of the war on top. That was all. And so these wars are planned decades, maybe sometimes centuries in advance. Another example is this Ukraine war. Zelensky has said that Ukraine will become the new Israel. Now think about that. Why would that happen? You have to know your history. Zelensky does not let Jewish people in Ukraine join the army. He doesn't want them dead. Only the Ukrainians, the Slavics, all the Slavic people are to die, right? Now, Putin, they say, is fighting for Russia. Not at all. He got into power because he was taken from Europe, brought to Israel. Israeli News Live exposed this, www.Israeli News Live, that Hussein was put into power by Israel. He works for Israel. Zelensky works for Israel.
Oh, I see.
So, the plan is very simple. Russia will destroy Ukraine gradually. There won't be a nuclear war, except maybe there might be a couple of bombs dropped over America, which will be high up in the air and destroy their electric grid, which will kill half of the Americans, because without an electric grid, most Americans are going to die. You just couldn't believe how stupid they are not to have at least 6 months to a year's supply of food. They should all be listening to a guy called Alex Jones from Texas and Infowars.com. He knows what he's talking about. Then, the basic plan is very simple. Russia will advance slowly through Ukraine so that they can get their army looking like it can do something, because it's a pretty hopeless army. Like all Russian armies, in the beginning they're crap, but with practice they get better. And Europe has no weapons, so it's quite possible that the plan is that there will be a war between Europe and Russia, and Europe with NATO, which is not NATO, it's NATO, right? They will attack Russia, and then Russia will have to attack back. But it's all scripted. They've all met each other. The Americans met the Russians met the Americans, and they said, look, this is how we're going to fight the war, and nobody's going to let off a bomb. Purpose of the war is get America, China, Europe, Russia destroyed, everybody killed, and then the remaining Ashkenazi Jews from that region will move into Ukraine, take over Ukraine. It's the breadbasket that from their time when they used to be part of the Khazar tribe some 600 years back, and the Slavics were the slaves to them, and the only remaining thing that's going to happen in history is the Khazars get back their territory. The Russians, which threw them out by the Slavics, will be annihilated, and they can live happily ever after. And that's the basic plan. And they don't care. They're going to let Israel be invaded by the Arabs. The 2 million Ashkenazi Jews, who basically control all of Israel, will move out of there. Israel will be invaded. The Jewish religion looks to get 6 million dead Jewish. That's the whole Holocaust, the holy fire. With the holy fire, they get given by God all their dreams, whatever that is. But they need 6 million Jews to die. And then from that, the Ashkenazi will move back into Israel when the war is finished and all the Arabs have been destroyed. But most of the Arab Israelis will die. unfortunately, that's the plan that the Ashkenazi Jews have decided for Israel. That's why you can never get peace in Israel, because the long-term plan is this big plan. All the world gets destroyed. Ashkenazi take over Israel and up to the Ukraine, and some 6 billion in the human race will die over this period of time, starting probably about 2 years. Hard to know exactly, but that's my opinion on the subject. This war has been planned. This is the plan. Know it, then make your plans around it. I suggest somewhere like South America is a better place to live, or maybe some parts of Asia might be up to yourself. I got my boat, my sailing boat, and I got my exit strategy organized. So good luck to the rest of the world. Okay.
Couple questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Let's talk about Africa, please.
Yes, well, Africa was also part of the plan. What they always do in Africa is they took, in the colonial times, all the best intelligent African people, brought them to communist regimes, Russia, Poland, whatever, China, made them communists so that when they went back as presidents and so forth, they would run communist systems, and they knew that that system doesn't work and would cause the systems to collapse, and then the American, everybody could buy everything from Africa dirt cheap, all the coal and iron and diamonds and gold and whatever. Then what happened is the new plan is part of the extermination plan of 6 billion people. What they want to do is get all the Africans to move up to Europe in the belief that they're going to hit this nirvana, be wealthy, etc. Whereas in actual fact, the reason they're putting them there is it's going to be much easier to kill all the Africans while they're killing all the Europeans by dropping all the big bombs on top of them. So by expanding, concentrating more people in one area, it makes it much easier to exterminate a lot more people. If you want, you can see that I have been involved in filming. My website is DC Bourbon Ireland. That's DC as in Washington DC, Bourbon as in the drink, and Ireland because I'm from Ireland. And the reason it's called that is because a guy called Tucker, who followed the Bilderbergs, who own and control most of the world, some 70% of the world, they came to Ireland, and Tucker, that was his email originally, was DC Bourbon, so I put that down, and then Ireland because I was the Irish element. We tried to arrest Kissinger when he was over in Ireland, but our present Minister for Defence, we call him Napoleon because he's trying to he declared war on Russia in 2023. So the idea that Ireland's neutral is complete nonsense. The president of Ireland, he's a communist, and he wants to declare war on Russia so that Ireland gets bombed to crap, so all the Irish gets killed because he hates us. The president of Ireland hates Irish people. Our government, what they call the cabinet, they declared war on Russia, and the Russians told us that, but yet most people in Ireland don't even know that we are at war with Russia because Ireland declared war on Russia. Why? Because they want Ireland destroyed. We've obviously got something, some party wants, maybe it's gold, maybe it's oil, I don't know. But by killing everybody in Ireland, they can come in and get everything for free. So the Irish government has sold us out and thrown us under the bus. And anyway, we tried to arrest Kissinger. He was over here in 2010, but our Minister for, at the time, Foreign Affairs, which was Micheál Martin, we call him Napoleon now because he's now the Minister for Defence, he organized that the police could not get the arrest warrant to arrest Henry Kissinger, wanted as a war criminal for having killed people in Chile, French and Spanish people, and to go to be arrested and brought to France and Spain to be tried under war crimes. And he organized that this wanted war criminal was not arrested and could party in Ireland for the weekend at the trilateral meeting in 2010, May 2010, at the Royal Dublin Society place. It's like a horse show place where it's basically free, what we call Funny Handshakers Central. Funny Handshakers refers to the Freemasons, another demonic group that would a lot of the people at the top of it would love Ireland to be destroyed and Europe to be destroyed and mostly the human race destroyed, because normally their head is the head of some royal family like the British royal family. And so there's only one rule: the royal families make a shitload of money when there's wars, and they always make sure they don't get killed. I mean, as an example, the British royal family before the Second World War met Hitler because he was their spy working for them, and they gave him $20 million, or 20 million whatever Deutschmarks or something like Swiss francs. And there was the only one time Hitler went to Switzerland was to get that 20 million, go back to Germany, and then hijack the party that he was representing and change his name to Nazi. And I'm curious as to, is that because Ashkenazi, because Hitler was also part Jewish. People don't know that.
Jesus, man, what?
Look, it's webs within webs. I'm telling you have to do your history. I mean, Hitler's real name wasn't even Hitler. He was trying to take his father's name, and his father's name was something like Herder or something like that, and somebody spelled it wrong and it came out Hitler. But he had another name before that, which was, it translated as money grabber, Schugel Graber, something like that in German. And he didn't like that name because that was from his mother. And his mother side of the family, because they worked as for the Rothschilds, Hitler was actually his grandfather. He was a bastard child from the Rothschild family. His grandfather in Austria was the head of the Austrian bank, Rothschild, and the other grandfather was the head of the British bank in 1910 when they brought Hitler over to England to be trained as a British spy. His brother had worked in Ireland in the Shelbourne Hotel and had gone to Liverpool, married an Irish girl in 1909, gone to Liverpool and trained his brother Hitler on how to speak English. So Hitler spoke perfect English. The royal family even went in the 30s to Hitler, met him, and they organized that he would get all this money and he would be in charge of Germany. And his primary mission, most people don't realize, his primary mission in the 1930s was to move all the Jewish people into Israel, or Palestine at the time, using German ships. There was a 1933 or 34, I can't remember the exact term, Zionist Act. And why? Because they were weaponizing what we call refugees by sending in so many refugees, Jewish people, into Israel without consulting with the local Arabs who lived there, to eventually make a state. And then in 1948, when Rockefeller made the United Nations, which he paid for, it was his island, the United Nations is built on, he pays the electricity bill, he appoints everybody, and he said, you're going to make Israel a state. And now look at the bloody mess. But that was all planned probably in 1890 when they set up the Zionists. We are going to make a state called Israel, and we're going to create a big enough war that most of the world will die, and then Israel will survive somehow or other. So you see, it's all there. You just got to figure it out. Anyway, any other questions?
You touched on the topic. I want to give you a Nazi racism hate. Tell me something, what you think about it.
Well, this is classic. If you want to say that somebody's hateful, you accuse them of what you're doing because you're hateful. Mm-hmm. So if you're hateful, you make laws that are hateful to everybody else. So the more they make hate laws, the more you know that that's what the strategy is. They're the hateful people. They're designing the system. They're in the government. They've been bought out by all the mega rich. There's another guy you should look at. He's done a YouTube called I am a hitman, economic hitman. It's called, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Put that into YouTube. He explains how you destroy a country. It's nothing to do with hate. That's just how you destroy it and rob them of everything. You go in, you loan them a load of money, you tell the president you're going to do it. He says, why would I do that? Because then I'll owe all this money. And they say, look, it's like this. in 10 years' time, we're going to collapse your country and we're going to take everything, your forests, your gold, your diamonds, all your people will be thrown under the bus. And what happens is, if you don't agree to this plan, you get a bullet in the head. That's the jackals, they come in and shoot the president. Or we give you $1 gazillion and then you fuck off to some other part of the planet and live happily ever after, even though you've thrown your country under the bus. Which choice do you take? Well, what do most baboon presidents do? They take the money.
And they go to the mall.
Something about getting a bullet in the head doesn't appeal to them, you know. So, I mean, they only just got a job, you know. So you can see how crazy it all is. So definitely look up that Confessions of an Economic Hitman. He worked for the top American people, the CIA and everybody, on how to destroy countries. And they've been destroying most of the third world, and now they're moving into Europe and America and Russia, and they're destroying everybody. That's the economic phase of the plan. The next phase, of course, is the big war, because that kills a lot more people a lot more quickly. You know, it's like if you bake a cake. If you bake a cake, you know, you put so much flour in, you put so much this in, so much that in, and you bake the cake for so long. These guys have been designing wars. Like, for example, the grandmother to the Rothschild family, who made most of the wars in Europe from the 16th century onwards, she said, if there's any war in Europe, it's got something to do with my sons, because they're bankers. They loan the money out to both sides, get them to fight each other, and it doesn't matter who wins. The bankers win because both sides are so in debt they have to pay them back, and then they can demand what they like. And so this war is like just making a cake. How do you design this side to start fighting that side? You know, this, that, and the other. Get our guy in there, get this guy in there. They meet together to decide how they're going to fight this war. So it's all planned. I mean, this Ukraine war, it's all been planned decades before, possibly. I mean, I'll give you an example. The original plan in the 1962 era with Cuba, the Cuba crisis, that was designed that Russia and America would go to war. America would take a hit, maybe 20 million killed by Russian nuclear bombs, but Russia would be destroyed. But unfortunately for the plan, Kennedy wasn't included in the plan, and he discovered that half his army was following another schedule that he had not instructed them to do. So realizing that he was going to lose control and there was going to be a war, he took an unusual step, and he rang Brezhnev and said, who was in charge of Russia, look, it's only a matter of time before I lose control of my army. They don't seem to do what I'm telling them. What about you? And he said, yeah, I'm much the same problem. Okay, well, let's sort this out. And they sorted it out, and that war didn't happen. But that war had been planned probably since the 1930s. I mean, it gives you an idea how far in advance the industrial war machines, the British, there was a president in Roosevelt or somebody like that in the 60s when he was leaving office. He said, the military system of America will destroy America if you let it. And we're now reaching the point where if the Americans continue to leave these baboons in charge of America with all their big bombs, they're going to blow the crap out of not just America, but everywhere else. And the Russians will blow the crap out, and the Chinese. I mean, the nationalists, the Chinese guy Mao Zedong was put into power by the Americans because they wanted a boogeyman. They need a boogeyman all the time.
Enemy.
They always need an enemy. I mean, I'll give you an example. The American flag has always got stripes going left to right. That is only when America is at war. If America is at peace, the stripes go vertical. So America always has to have a war. It has to have a war on drugs, a war on terrorism. Because if they don't have a war, they can't go back to the original American Constitution. The American Constitution is only for when America's in peace. As long as America is always at war, America has no constitution. It's under martial law. It has been ever since the Civil War. So this is why the only time you will know that America has stopped going to war is when they change their flag to the vertical stripes. And even the Americans don't know that. So it's all there, it's all planned. I mean, the name of the game is war is very profitable. And then later it's, well, we don't need all the people, we got the robots, we got all the, we don't need their money because we got the computer power, the robots make robots. So we're now the useless eaters, so they don't need us, so they want to get rid of us. And of course, that's, as best as I can ascertain, the plan why it will be, Ukraine will be the breadbasket for the Ashkenazis, who will control, because they'll take the 400 nuclear missiles that Israel has to Ukraine, and then everybody else is dead and gone. All their bombs are used up, and they'll be the leaders of the world. They'll have the 400 nukes. If you give any trouble to them, they'll nuke you. And that's basically the plan, best as I can see it. And not being Jewish, I don't think I like this plan. But what can I do? I'm only a Joseph on the planet.
Do you see the light?
Oh yeah, I was explaining earlier on to you that I read the Bible, and I came to I was not really a big believer in God. I was kind of neutral. You know, I'm being a Catholic, we call it lapsed Catholic. You know, I did what I liked. You know, I invented my own rules. I read the Bible, and I came to the section where Jesus was walking on the water, and Peter was on the water, and Peter suddenly said, "Oh, Jesus, save me," because he fell into the water. And at the same time, a light came out of the Bible into me like a laser. And after that, I said, "Oh, I better follow that book. better do what Jesus is telling me to do, because it's the truth." So that's the way where that would have been 35 years ago, and I gave up drink. Haven't drank since then. You know.
Do you think the devils are coming after me after I post this video?
Maybe. They exist. There are people that will kill you for the time of day because you don't fit their plans. They could kill me. They could kill anybody. I mean, if you're going to kill 6 billion people, what is one or two different people along the road going to do to change anything? You know what I mean? But I'm in the Catholic religion, and as far as I'm concerned, if they kill me, well, that's just, I go to heaven with a bit of luck. I'm just trying to get through the pearly gates. At my age, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm retired now.
How do we unite these people? Unite different colors, different religion, different beliefs, all of this. How do we get together so we don't blow ourselves up?
I'd love to know. I can only say that you will notice that even Protestant Catholic and Protestant Christians will have some great insights, and they will work on finding solutions. And see, essentially Christianity is, I have to be helping everybody in the world. Like, say if you're a fireman, you don't rush into a building to rescue people and say, "Oh, you're not my religion, you can burn," right?
Yes, yes.
You rescue everybody in the building. So as long as everybody in the world could say, "Well, look, I may not be Christian, but I'm prepared to rescue Christians who are in a building that's on fire, and I'm not going to attack and kill anybody," we can advance. But as long as we say, my religion or my system or whatever gives me the right to kill those people or whatever, then you're going to have a problem. And unfortunately, there are some people who, over many hundreds of years, like the Khazar tribe, they do not forgive. They don't forgive the Russians for having been deposed in 600 years ago from their Khazar tribe area. I mean, what they did was they merged with the Ashkenazi Jews, because this was their method of stealing everything, was get to know everything about these people, all sorts of people, not just the Ashkenazi Jews, and then kill their family and replace them with replicas, and then you build yourself into this religion. This was their method of stealing everything. Traders coming from China going through that area, they would buy the stuff off them, and they would treat them nice for maybe 100 years, and then they would kill all their family because they knew everything about their family, and replace them, and then they would become the traders going to China and so forth, going to Europe, selling the stuff. So they gradually replaced everybody who had the misfortune to pass through their territory over hundreds of years, and they managed to control, because they were ruthless. They would kill anybody. you know. But they were clever about it. They didn't just kill them straight away. They did it over long periods of time so that they could replace them and then do their business and merge and be able to go into other countries and figure out how we can attack that country and steal everything and how we can attack that enemy and so forth. So, I mean, if you want to know the most ruthless people on the planet that probably ever existed, just look up the Khazar tribe. They were ruthless. They kill anybody at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's just unfortunate, the history.
I am so hopeful. I believe in 2 years, but I also believe that we're gonna reach the stars. And look over there, like you see, it's the sky.
Yes.
You can see through the sky, but deep down there is a star, there is a planet. They could call it New Israel, and right over there on the opposite side, you could call it New Palestine, call
Yes.
it New Ukraine, New Russia, wherever. We are
Yes.
gonna reach the stars, bro. We're gonna be
I
Gucci.
think so. I'm optimistic. You see, bear in mind that the original plan to destroy America and Russia in 1962 didn't happen with the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Jesus has a way of stepping in my opinion, because he's Son of God. If enough people repent, he could step in and stop the plan. He stopped their plans, and I mean, many a time. I mean, for example, people don't know that Germany made the first atomic bomb. They found out when the Allies invaded Germany, the first thing they did was destroy all the evidence of everything, because they didn't want people to know how advanced the Germans were in everything. But the Russians didn't. So when the wall fell down, we got a huge amount of information about Germany. They discovered that teams of 8 people were making 50 grams of nuclear bomb material a week, right? That meant that the Germans had a lot of nuclear bomb material. Now we know what happened. They set off one bomb in the Baltic Sea. That was a normal atomic bomb, and then they set off a smaller one, what's called a tactical bomb, with 200 grams of material over a division of the Russian division that was attacking them, and it worked. But the problem is the heavy water the supply had been destroyed by the resistance in Norway, and they couldn't build more bombs. So there was a deal done between the Americans, British, and the Germans that if the Americans didn't invade this year, the Nazis could escape out through the rat line, most of them, to South America, Argentina, various other places, take all their patents on every kind of stuff that they'd built, and they would give enough material for the Americans to have 2 bombs. Now the Americans, with 200,000 people working in America, could only build enough material to make 1 atomic bomb. So what happened was, they set off their bomb with the help of the Germans, how to make it. They helped them, and then they had the material to make another 2 bombs, which they dropped on Japan. So it was actually German atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan. You know, this is the thing. They did not want us to know any of this. They do their best to hide the history, because they don't want you to know that most wars are planned decades in advance. If not, as far as I can see, maybe hundreds of years in advance, but that's more hard to prove, but we can prove Iraq was planned at least 10 years in advance. I mean, a very good question. How in the First World War did they have all the uniforms for all the soldiers to go to war so quickly? Yeah, they had already made them, because they all knew how this plan would work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, it's staring us in the face. It's all planned. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just so ridiculous. I mean, one German tank commander driving through Russia said on the second day driving through Russia, wheat field after wheat field after wheat field, he realized they'd lost the war on the second day of invading Russia. Now, if a very intelligent army people can figure that out.
How is that?
It's such a long distance from Germany to Moscow.
Oh.
It took weeks of driving their tanks. But after 2 days, see, in military terms, the more you advance into a territory, the more risk you have that you get cut off, your supplies get cut off. and you terminate it. That's what happened to Stalingrad. The supplies got cut off to the German army. But the two generals in charge of that army in Stalingrad, they were communists. And Hitler knew that. And so when they got captured, the first thing that happened was the Russian Stalin took them and put them in a top-class hotel and looked after them so that when Russia won the war, he could have suitable communist Germans move into Germany to start running the show. You see, and obviously he knew that this was all stage managed. The Germans were going to intrinsically just smash up Russia. Russia was going to smash up Germany, and the British and the Americans would live happily ever after. You see, it's all planned. Because what it is Stalin was not illogical. Everything Stalin did was very logical. He managed to take over from the two main guys who set up communist Russia, Lenin and Trotsky. These were American Russian Jews sent over to make communism in Russia. The reason was because Russia had screwed up America. The Rothschilds and the famous banking people had decided in the Civil War the South would win, which was unusual. Nobody didn't care who won, whether it was South or North. But they had decided the South would win. And Russia had sent all its navy over during the American Civil War to back up the North. And that meant that the Rothschilds' project to make the South of America, the Confederates, win was scrapped. And they lost money. So they said, we will terminate every member of the Tsar's family.
Oh.
And that was why they terminated every single person from the Tsar's family. And that was 60 years later, because they pass on the debt to the rest of their family. You will go over and you will exterminate the Tsar and this, and then they came up with communism, and you'll use communism to do it. So it's all planned. From the time that the Rothschilds lost the war in 65 with the southern states, they were planning how to destroy the Tsar, and they did, and all his family were wiped out. And then they went to a lot of trouble to mess up Russia, and for example, most of the people who did most of the killing, the streets in Russia were running with blood. If you were a Christian, you were going to be killed, and you were mostly killed by the NGK, who were in charge before the KGB. They would cut off arms, legs, everything, all sorts of horrible things. And the Germans, of course, they saw this, and they didn't want that to come to Germany. That was why Hitler was able to wind them up. You got to attack shaft the other bastard before he shafts you. So that's why Hitler managed to wind up the Germans to go and attack Russia, because in their opinion, Russia with communism was going to come and attack Germany. It's all there. So you set up the story to get both sides to think why we should attack the other side. I'll give you an example. I met one guy. He was from Luxembourg, and he fought for the Germans, not because he wanted to, but Germany, when it invaded Luxembourg, forced all the Luxembourg people to join the German army, but they had a slightly different color uniform. And as they were retreating from the war, he was on a long line of hills, and he was a machine gunner, and he said the Russians were just coming day after day, and we were shooting them, and they were dropping like flies. But eventually, after 7 days, no sleeping, just constantly shooting, and thousands of other machine guns shooting on Russians, they ran out of bullets.
My God, yeah. What a strategy.
Yeah.
What a brilliant strategy.
They ran out of bullets. The Russian solution to the problem was just keep sending men into the meat grinder until the enemy runs out of bullets. And then, of course, for his luck or bad luck, he had to go and get captured and brought to Siberia, and had to work for 4 years for the Russians as slaves in the camps in Siberia, where 90% of the German army that was captured died. It was so bad that even some of the Russians were dying. I mean, it was minus 60 degrees. It was
They were
hardly
eating
any
each other.
food. I mean, things were really bad in Russia at the time. But Stalin knew that because he wasn't Jewish, that they were happy that he ran Russia for 5 years, and then they would send hit teams to get rid of him. So he had to figure out which is the hit team. And so he'd say, well, that general acted a bit funny. Maybe he's part of a hit team. Kill him, kill all his family, kill all his friends. And then at least 100 would die. And then he would take 1,000 of the people around them and send them to Siberia, which was basically a death sentence. 95% of them would die in 1 year. And but it did work. I mean, he succeeded in not getting exterminated by the hit teams until it looks like the final team got him when he was like 70 something in the 50s. They poisoned his food. He was dead. But I mean, and he had said when he was at what happened after the Second World War was the Americans said to him, and the British, they said, we need you as a boogeyman to keep Eastern Europe. And he said, I can't be a boogeyman. I haven't got the atomic bomb. They said, not a problem. We're going to give you the atomic bomb. So that we need, for the next 40 years or whatever, that you are the boogeyman and we can play this Cold War crap game, right? Now, I knew a guy who worked in the American Army in 1980s, mid-80s, and he said, I saw, they used to do war games. He said, I'd see this kind of war game, I'd see that kind of war game. He said, I saw the war game what's happened up to today. He said, I saw that the wall would fall down, that peace would come, and then there will be a war between Russia and Ukraine. And then it will expand into a world war. And he said, that was one of the war games. And we had that in the 1980s. So I'm telling you, it's all planned.
If you are right,
Yeah.
and we have 2 years, what would you like to do? Enjoy your life in 2 years. What's the plan?
Well, see, I'm retired, so I mean, if I live another 3 years, I'll be doing well. I mean, I would like that there is no war. I mean, naturally. I mean, nobody wants this war, but unfortunately, as long as people are corralled, I mean, they're basically corralling all of Africa to try and go to Europe or to America or wherever, in the belief that they're going to get a better life. What they don't realize is they're being corralled into a trap, the trap that Europe is in. We're going to be at war. So if you put more people into Europe, you're going to kill more people. That's the formula, you know. I mean, that's how you bake the cake. So I mean, I'll give you an example. All the European governments, virtually without exception, except maybe Poland and Hungary, went down to Morocco in 2018, and they signed what was called the United Nations Population Replacement Treaty. In this, they're basically saying that Europe will open its doors and import in 1.5 billion people into Europe, 1.5, and the European population is 500 billion. So that's 3 times more, there'll be 3 times more non-Europeans in Europe in the next period. That's the plan. Now, they fully well know that if you double your population anywhere in the world, doesn't matter religion, color, whatever it is, there's always a civil war. It's Roman times it happened. Vast amounts of people moved into an area for 10 years, and then they doubled the population. There wasn't enough houses, there wasn't enough doctors, there wasn't enough roads, there wasn't enough anything, so the civil war broke out between the newcomers and the original people. So the United Nations knows what it's doing. It got all the governments to agree, we'll just open our doors and let all of Europe be flooded by everybody from Asia, Africa, what the hell. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the population in Europe doubles, this will be the time that there's a civil war.
Endgame.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we call, their term, end game. So the United Nations was built by Rockefeller, owned by Rockefeller, takes its instructions from Rockefeller. He's told the United Nations, make every European country sign up to a suicide pact, go nuts, open the doors, and let everybody in, knowing full well that this will create the new civil war. You know what I mean? So it's all planned. I mean, they all went to Morocco. 2018, our Minister for Justice, a guy from Ireland called Murphy, he went down there and he signed for our government that Ireland has opened its doors and anybody can come in. No checks on the papers, no checks on nothing. Just off you go. So this is what you see it. They know what they're doing. They want to create bedlam. The governments have all been paid off to destroy Europe. That's it. Now, I don't know about Moldova because I haven't been there.
They always try to grow forever. The Turks, the Russians, the Europeans, they always want to bite on us. But I do have to catch a plane to Africa.
Yes, you're going to Dakar,
Senegal. Yeah.
So, good luck for your journey, and
I want to thank you for the
might meet
education.
again.
Yes, sir.
Diarmuid Shakru, and I'm Siegfried means victory, peace. That's my Viking name.
Mm-hmm.
We have an Irish name which is Oshakru,
Mm-hmm. Nice.
but I prefer to use my Viking name, victory, peace. It means when you win the war, there's peace. Yeah.
Yes.
Because half the Irish people are originally Vikings from Norway or Sweden.
You look like a Viking. Man.
Yeah, well, we gotta
You
go.
are a Viking.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Viking power.
Viking power.